Over the last few years, I have been delivering simple how to draw a portrait courses to many of my clients, including men and women in prisons around the Northeast. By following these simple guidelines, even folk who have said they can't draw end up by doing quite commendable drawings in a relatively short space of time. I'm starting off by drawing a box in my sketchbook A4, quite faintly using a charcoal pencil, and the box is about 4 inches by 3 inches. I then draw a line halfway down, another line down the centre, and I clip each corner with a triangle. The bottom triangles should be slightly larger than the top triangles, and this is to create a shape of an upside down egg for the shape of the head. I then place the eyes on the horizontal line like so. You'll see that the head is almost 5 eyes wide, so you should be able to fit an eye in between the 2 eyes and almost 1 eye either side. In between the eye guideline and the bottom of the box, I draw another horizontal guideline, this time for the nose. And slightly higher than halfway between the nose guideline and the bottom, I draw another line, this time for the mouth. From the inside corner of each eye, I drop a vertical line for the wing of each nostril. I draw the pupils, and all this is done quite faintly, and then I drop another vertical line from each pupil, this time for the edges of the mouth. I draw in the shape of the mouth, remembering to keep it quite faint. You can then start drawing in the positioning of the eyebrows above the eyes and start drawing in the eyes themselves with some darker tones. All that you've done so far is preparatory. The guidelines can be used for a male or female portrait. It's important from this point onwards that you study the actual drawing you are copying from and draw what you see so that you get a good likeness. In this exercise, I'm copying a portrait by an artist called John Singer Sargent, one of my favourite artists and one of the greatest portrait artists of all time. I'm using the darkness of the charcoal pencil to create these dark eyebrows and mysterious shadows in the corner of the eyes. You can shade in the edge of the nose with a lighter, more delicate shading, and again at the base of the nose. Just using the darkness of the charcoal pencil to really build up some dark contrasts against the white of the paper. And as you can see, I'm moving down the edge of the nose with some lighter tones. All the time I'm observing the original portrait to make sure that I'm copying the shading as accurately as I can. I repeat the process for the other eye, making sure again that I keep looking at the original reference. And remember that in this particular portrait, the eyes are not identical. Again, knock in the eyebrows and shadows around the eyes with some dark shading. Moving down the edge of the nostril and then onto the mouth. The top lip is indicated with some heavy shading, and it's important to get the shape of the mouth right. The bottom lip is defined by shading in a shadow area under the lip itself. And you can see that I'm taking the shading down his face to create some heavier tones for his chin. And notice that his chin is right at the base of the box that we drew at the very start. Look where his ears are positioned. Because we are looking up at the portrait from below his chin, his ears are positioned below his eyes. If we were looking down on him, his ears would start from well above his eyes. We can use other parts of his features to locate the exact positioning for the bottom of his ears. Using the faint triangles that we drew in each corner of the original box, we can now draw in a softer, more gentle oval shape for his head, just within the box shape, which we take below the bottom of the box because we can see under his chin. If we were looking straight on, we would be taking the line of his jaw onto the box line itself. Now for some darker tones for his nostrils and some lighter shading around his mouth. Much of his other ear is in shadow, so your shading should indicate that. So you'll see I'm doing much darker tones for the top of his ear here. When you draw hair, you are drawing the shape of the hair en masse, not individual hairs. Notice that his hair is going well outside the original box shape that we drew at the start. You can afford to be bold with some of your shading if you know that the outline of the hair is in the right place. So take your time to make sure that you get this right. I'm drawing some strong, bold shapes to provide guidelines for the heavy shading to come. And remember that the charcoal marks that John Singer Sargent drew were very free and expressive. It would be almost impossible to copy them exactly. Sargent himself couldn't do them exactly the same, and I certainly haven't. The important principle to remember is that you're drawing waves of hair grouped together, not individual hairs. Try to imagine drawing the shape of the hair if it was sculptured out of stone or wood. And you'll notice that the shading that I'm doing is generally going in the direction that the hair is growing from. So those marks reflect that direction, all the time keeping them quite loose and free. And all the time I'm looking at the original drawing by John Singer Sargent to make sure that my marks are as close as possible. Now I'm softening the edges of the head with some lighter tones, which I'm taking across his forehead and down the side of his face. And these shading marks are much more subtle and much more sensitive compared to the strong bold lines I did for his hair. Now for his neck. Straight vertical lines going all the way down, and I'm going to build up the tones for his neck and draw in a dark shadow area under his neck, which really brings this study to completion. And you'll notice that the original guidelines that I did at the start can hardly be seen, and I haven't used a rubber to remove them. If you look very carefully, you can just see the vertical center line on his forehead. I hope you've had some fun having a go at this, and you can use this structure to do other portraits, even your own self-portrait. And I recommend that you look at the work of other artists like Rembrandt and have a go at copying their paintings and drawings. Thank you for watching, and have lots of fun.